My daughter told me she was expecting baby number 6. For 3 solid years, I'd been the one raising her 5 kids while she contributed nothing. I was drained, depleted. That's when I walked away. She wouldn't just accept it. She contacted the authorities and claimed I was a thief. My own flesh and blood attempted to destroy me completely. But I held the evidence in my hands, and her downfall was coming quickly. Thanks for being here. Comment below, have you ever felt trapped by family? Where are you from? Note some details are dramatized, but the lessons on boundaries are real and could help you. Now here's how it began. I never imagined that being a grandmother would cost me everything I'd worked for. My savings, my health, and nearly my sanity. The September sun was setting when I pulled into the driveway of our small house on the west side of Columbus, Ohio. My feet ached from a 9-hour shift at Target, and all I wanted was 5 minutes of silence. But silence was a luxury I hadn't known in 3 years. I pushed open the front door to familiar chaos. Toys covered the living room floor. A pile of laundry sat half-folded on the couch. The coffee table was sticky with dried juice, and someone had left a bowl of soggy cereal on the recliner. Standing in the middle of it all was my daughter. Crystal looked up from her phone, one hand resting on her stomach. At 29, she should have been building her own life. Instead, she was still living in mine. In the house, my late husband David and I had worked so hard to pay off. "Hey, Mom, I've got news." She smoothed her hand over her belly in a theatrical gesture. "I'm pregnant." The room tilted. I gripped the back of a chair to steady myself. Again, number 6. Her voice carried pride as if she'd just announced a promotion. "Kyle and I are so excited." I turned toward Kyle, sprawled across the sofa with a game controller in his hands. He didn't look up. The blue light from the TV flickered across his face as he mashed buttons, completely absorbed. Certainly more absorbed than he'd ever been in any real responsibility. My stomach churned. For 3 years, I'd been the one waking at 5 a.m. to make breakfast, pack lunches, check homework. 3 years of raising her children while she slept until noon. 3 years of watching Kyle contribute nothing but empty beer bottles. And now there would be a 6th child. "Mom, did you hear me?" I met her eyes. "I heard you." "So, I'm going to need help with medical bills, and we'll need a bigger van." That expectant look. The same one I'd seen 100 times before. Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, just a quiet, final breaking. "No." Crystal blinked. "What?" "I'm not giving you another cent." The smile vanished. "Excuse me." "I've been supporting you and 5 children for 3 years. I work 60 hours a week and every penny goes into this house. Your house." The words tasted bitter. "I'm 52 years old and I can't even afford to see a doctor because I'm paying for your choices." "My choices? These are your grandchildren. And they're your children. When are you going to take care of them yourself?" Kyle finally looked up, smirking. "Whoa, Grandma's got some fire today." Crystal took a step toward me, something dangerous flickering across her face. "This is my house now, Mom. Don't forget that." The words hit like a slap. My house. The house David had died to provide. He'd been 48 when the workplace accident happened, leaving me a widow. We just made the final mortgage payment 2 months before. He'd been so proud. And now Crystal stood here telling me it belonged to her. "If you're not going to help, then maybe you should leave." The threat hung in the air. After everything I'd sacrificed, she was willing to throw me out. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and realized I didn't recognize the person standing there. The little girl who used to crawl into my lap when scared was gone. In her place stood a stranger who saw me as nothing more than a wallet and a babysitter. "Noted," I said quietly. I turned and walked toward my bedroom, legs trembling. Behind me, Kyle chuckled, and Crystal muttered something under her breath. That moment was the beginning of the end. The alarm shattered what little sleep I'd managed. This had been my routine for 3 years. 60-hour weeks at Target, then a second shift at home that never ended. 5 a.m. on a Saturday. The house was dark and silent except for Kyle's snoring through the closed bedroom door. I shuffled to the kitchen and flipped on the stove light. 5 lunch boxes waited on the counter. Peanut butter and jelly for Jacob. Turkey sandwich for Zoe, no tomatoes. Crackers for Grace. Apple slices for Wyatt's daycare. Kyle's empty beer bottles formed a pyramid on the counter. Again. I swept them into the trash, the glass clinking in the quiet. A small figure appeared in the doorway. Logan, my 16-year-old grandson, walked over without a word and started gathering backpacks, checking each one for homework folders. "Thanks, sweetheart," I whispered. He just nodded. In this house full of chaos, Logan was the one steady thing I could count on. From the living room, I heard crying. Wyatt stood in his crib, tears streaming down his face. No one had heard him. Or maybe they had and didn't care. "Hey, buddy, it's okay." I picked him up and carried him to the kitchen, settling him on my hip while I scrambled eggs with my free hand. This was every morning. By 6:30, the older kids stumbled in. Jacob sat at the table, half asleep, and I helped him finish the math worksheet he'd forgotten. Grace appeared next, hair tangled. I worked through the knots with a brush while she ate cereal. Zoe was last. She slid into her chair without a word, eyes distant and hollow. 13 years old and already carrying the weight of this broken home. I glanced down the hallway. The master bedroom door remained shut. Crystal and Kyle would sleep until 10, maybe 11. They always did. While I woke before dawn to care for their children. "They sleep while I raise their kids," I muttered. Logan looked up. Our eyes met. He understood. He saw everything. My phone buzzed. An email from my insurance company, overdue for my annual checkup. I deleted it. There was no time for doctors, barely time to breathe. I loaded everyone into the car and dropped the older kids at the bus stop, then took Wyatt and Grace to daycare. By the time I pulled into the Target parking lot, my shoulders felt like they were carrying concrete blocks. The morning sun was already heating up the pavement. Another long shift ahead. Another day of pretending everything was fine while my body screamed for rest. Little did I know that within hours I discovered just how deep Crystal's selfishness actually ran. During my lunch break in the Target employee room, my phone lit up with a notification that made my blood run cold. Final notice, electric service disconnection. 72 hours. I stared at the screen. 3 months overdue. But I'd given Crystal $850 last week specifically for this bill. My hands shook as I dialed her number. "Hello." She sounded groggy, like I'd woken her. At noon. "Crystal, I just got a shutoff notice. 3 months past due. What happened to the money?" Silence, then a sigh. "Oh, right. I meant to pay that." "You meant to..." My voice rose. "That was $850. Where did it go?" "Mom, relax. I needed new clothes. I'm pregnant, remember? Nothing fits." The room spun. I pressed my palm against the cold table. "You spent utility money on clothes." Maternity clothes aren't cheap, and I needed them. No apology, no remorse, just entitlement. They're shutting off power in 3 days. There are 5 children in that house. So pay it again. "You've got savings, don't you?" The casual way she said it. Like my savings were just another ATM for her. I hung up. Ms. Anderson appeared in the doorway, concern on her face. "Patricia, everything okay?" "I need to leave early. Family emergency." "Go. Take care of what you need to." I drove home with my mind racing through calculations. How much was left in savings? Could I cover this? The house was quiet when I arrived. Crystal sat on the couch watching TV, an expensive maternity boutique bag beside her. She didn't look up. I went straight to the kitchen trash and dug through it. Near the bottom, a crumpled receipt. $853.42. Designer maternity tops. A silk nursing robe. Prenatal vitamins that cost 3 times the generic. "Did you really go through the trash?" Crystal's voice came from behind me. I turned receipt in hand. "You spent the electric bill money on silk robes." She shrugged. "I'm carrying a baby. I deserve to feel good about myself. And your children deserve lights and refrigeration. So handle it. That's what you do, right?" I stared at my daughter. This wasn't just irresponsibility. This was deliberate. She knew exactly what she was doing. Without another word, I opened my banking app. My savings account stared back. $1,237. That's all I had left after 3 years of supporting 6 people on retail wages. I transferred $850 to the electric company. Back at Target, Ms. Anderson pulled me aside as I clocked in. "Patricia, I've known you 8 years. You're one of the hardest workers I've ever seen." She paused. "But you need to set boundaries. Family or not, you can't pour from an empty cup." I nodded, unable to speak, past the lump in my throat. As I returned to the floor, I checked my balance again. $387. After years of 60-hour weeks, that's what remained. The weight of it settled on my shoulders like wet concrete. How many more times would I have to sacrifice my future for Crystal's choices? The answer came on Monday in a way I never expected. Monday afternoon, my phone rang as I restocked kitchen towels. Lincoln Middle School flashed on the screen. "Ms. Patricia, this is Principal Patterson. I need you to come in. It's about Zoe." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "She skipped class and had an altercation with her teacher. We need to discuss this in person." I found Ms. Anderson and explained I needed to leave. Again. Her sympathetic look came with a note on her clipboard. 4 hours of lost wages this week, about $50 I couldn't afford. The school office smelled like floor wax and old paper. "Mr." Patterson gestured me toward his office. Zoe sat by the window, arms crossed, staring at nothing. "Zoe, honey." She turned. Her eyes were red and swollen. When she saw me, something broke. She launched into my arms, sobbing so hard her body shook. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" "Nobody cares about me." The words came in gasps. "Mom only talks about the new baby. She acts like I don't even exist. Like none of us exist." My chest tightened. I'd watched it happen. Crystal's complete focus on her pregnancy while her existing children faded into the background. "I care about you, Zoe. But you're always tired, Grandma. You work all the time, and when you're home, you're cooking or cleaning or helping the little ones. There's never time for me." The truth hit like a punch. She was right. I was so busy surviving, I'd stopped seeing them. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. "Mrs. Patricia, could I speak with you privately?" I kissed Zoe's forehead and stepped into the hallway. "I'll be direct because you need to hear this." His voice was low professional. "This is Zoe's 3rd incident this semester. Her grades are dropping. She's withdrawn." He paused. "The situation at home isn't sustainable." "I'm doing everything I can." "I know. But have you considered contacting Child Protective Services not as punishment, as support? These children need more help than one person can provide." CPS. The words sent ice through my veins. Investigations, questions, kids split into different foster homes, Logan separated from his siblings, little Wyatt confused in a stranger's house. I can't. They'd split them up. Maybe, or maybe they'd get the help they need. I drove home in silence, Zoe beside me staring out the window. Her words echoed, "You're always tired, Grandma." The truth settled over me like a weight. By trying to hold this broken family together, I wasn't protecting these children. I was teaching them that suffering in silence was normal, that love meant exhaustion, that their needs didn't matter. I was failing them by staying. But I had no idea the worst was still waiting at home. By 7 that evening, I'd been awake for 14 hours. But the day wasn't over. I stood at the stove boiling water for spaghetti, the cheapest meal I could manage. "Mr." Patterson's words kept replaying. "These children need more help than one person can provide." The kids shuffled to the table. Jacob rubbed his eyes. Grace climbed into her booster seat. Zoe sat without looking at anyone. Logan helped Wyatt, then took his seat. Crystal emerged wearing the new silk robe, settling into her chair with a dramatic sigh. Kyle dropped into his seat, last immediately picking up his fork. I set down the plates. Plain spaghetti with jarred sauce. Nothing fancy, but it was hot and it was food. Kyle took one bite, then pushed his plate away like I'd served garbage. "Where's the meat?" I paused. "Excuse me. Why isn't there any meat? I'm craving steak tonight." The audacity stole my breath. This man who'd contributed nothing was complaining about free food. I don't have money for steak, not after the electric bill Crystal forgot. He laughed. That's your problem, not mine. Crystal nodded. He's right, Mom. I need protein for the baby. My hands tightened around the serving spoon. Then maybe one of you should buy groceries. Kyle's smirk widened. Why should we? You're the one living here for free. The words hung like poison. Living here for free. In the house where I paid every bill, cooked every meal, and raised 5 children that weren't mine. Living for free, I repeated softly. Yeah, it's Crystal's house now. So if you don't like it, you know where the door is. Crystal said nothing, just kept eating like Kyle hadn't told her mother to leave. The kids had stopped eating, eyes darting between us. Logan's jaw clenched, knuckles white around his fork. Something inside me cracked, not loudly, just a clean final break. This wasn't my home. I wasn't family. I was unpaid help who could be replaced the moment I stopped being useful. I set down the serving spoon and walked to my bedroom without another word. Behind me, I heard Kyle chuckle. That night, lying in the dark, I understood something I'd been refusing to see for 3 years. This situation wasn't going to get better. Crystal wasn't going to wake up and become responsible. Kyle wasn't going to leave. And I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for people who saw me as nothing more than a servant. But I still didn't know the full extent of what Crystal was planning. 3 days after that humiliating dinner, I sat alone in my tiny bedroom and decided to check my bank accounts. That decision changed everything. The house was finally quiet. Crystal and Kyle had gone to bed and the kids were asleep. I opened my laptop on the small desk wedged between my bed and the wall, the only private space I had left. I was just doing routine checking, making sure the electric bill payment had cleared, confirming my next paycheck would hit on Friday. Then I saw the email. Credit alert, new hard inquiry on your report. My finger hovered over the mouse. I hadn't applied for any credit. My score was probably terrible after years of living paycheck to paycheck. I clicked the link and logged into my credit monitoring service. There it was, a brand new credit card account I'd never opened. Current balance $4,817. Credit limit $4,817. Maxed out. My hands started shaking. I clicked through the transaction history, heart pounding. Babylux.com, $1,847. Designer crib set stroller. Heaven.com, $923. Premium travel system nursery elite. Com, $1,340. Glider chair. Babylux.com, $687. Organic bedding. Every single purchase was baby furniture, high-end expensive baby furniture. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and dialed the one person I could trust. Patricia. Carol's voice was alert despite the late hour. What's wrong? Someone opened a credit card in my name. The words came out strangled. Crystal. It had to be Crystal. Tell me everything. I walked her through it. The hard inquiry, the maxed out card, the baby furniture purchases that coincided with Crystal's pregnancy announcement. Carol was silent for a moment. When she spoke, her voice had shifted to professional paralegal mode. Patricia, that's identity theft, a federal crime. If Crystal used your information to open credit in your name, she's committed fraud. I know, but first thing tomorrow you call the fraud department, dispute every charge, freeze your credit immediately so she can't open anything else. Carol, she's my daughter. If I report her, you're not reporting her to police. Not yet. You're protecting yourself from financial destruction. Carol's voice softened. But you could press charges. She could go to jail for this. My stomach twisted. The kids. If she's arrested, what happens to them? I understand. But if she's willing to steal your identity once, she'll do it again, and next time might be worse. Carol paused. You need an exit plan, Patricia. I'm serious. Start thinking about it. An exit plan. The words felt impossible. Where would I go? How would I survive? And what about the children? Just freeze your credit tonight, Carol said gently. We'll figure out the rest later. But promise me you'll start thinking about options. "Okay," I whispered. After we hung up, I followed Carol's instructions, called the fraud department's 24-hour line, disputed the charges, froze my credit with all 3 bureaus. Then I sat in the darkness staring at the closed door. Somewhere beyond that door, my daughter was sleeping peacefully, sleeping without a care while she'd just committed a federal crime against her own mother. The little girl I'd rocked to sleep, the child I'd sacrificed everything for. She'd stolen my identity like I was a stranger. I didn't recognize her anymore. The terrifying part was realizing I didn't know what else she was capable of. Within 1 week, I'd find out exactly how far she was willing to go. 1 week after Crystal's announcement, I rushed home from Target to intercept the mail carrier. I'd been waiting for this envelope for 2 months. My hands trembled as I sorted through the stack of bills and junk mail. Then I saw it. A thick cream envelope with the logo I'd been dreaming about. Apex Solutions, Denver, Colorado. I stood there on the driveway, my Target vest still on, and carefully tore open the seal. Dear Ms. Patricia, we are pleased to offer you the position of Human Resources Coordinator at our Denver office. My eyes scanned down to the salary line. $65,000 annually. I had to read it twice. $65,000. That was more than double my current salary at Target. More than I'd made in my entire adult life. Benefits included. Relocation assistance provided. Start date flexible. For the first time in 3 years, I felt something unfamiliar bloom in my chest. Hope, actual real hope that I could escape this situation. That I could build a life of my own again. I smiled. I couldn't help it. That smile was my first mistake. Mom. Crystal's voice came from the front door. She must have heard my car pull up. What are you doing out here? Why are you smiling? I looked up, still holding the letter, that stupid smile still on my face. Her eyes narrowed. What's that? It's nothing, just... She was across the driveway in 3 strides, snatching the letter from my hands before I could react. I watched her face as she read. Confusion, then understanding. Then something darker that made my stomach drop. Human Resources Coordinator. She looked up at me, her voice sharp. Denver. You applied for a job in Denver. Crystal, I can explain. When were you going to tell me? Her voice was rising. Were you just going to leave, just abandon us? I would send money back. I could help you more with a better salary. She ripped the letter in half. The sound seemed to echo across the quiet neighborhood. I stared at the 2 pieces of paper in her hands, unable to process what had just happened. You think you're going somewhere. Crystal's face had gone red. I need you here. Who's going to watch the kids? Who's going to pay the bills? You're an adult, Crystal. You need to figure that out yourself. I'm pregnant, she screamed. I can't do this alone. Kyle appeared in the doorway, that familiar smirk on his face. He leaned against the doorframe like he was watching a comedy show. Come on, old lady, he drawled. You really think you'd survive out there on your own? You'd come crawling back within a week. Guaranteed. Crystal stepped closer, the torn letter pieces clutched in her fist. Her voice dropped low, dangerous. Let me make this very clear, Mom. You're going to quit Target. You're going to drop those stupid online classes you've been taking, and you're going to stay home where you're actually useful. She dropped the letter pieces at my feet. That's your only option. I looked down at my future literally in tatters on the driveway. All those months of secretly taking online business courses. The resume I'd carefully crafted. The interview I'd driven 3 hours to Denver for using a sick day I couldn't afford. Gone. When I looked up, I caught movement at the upstairs window. Logan. My 16-year-old grandson stood there watching everything. His hand was pressed against the glass, his face tight with an emotion I couldn't quite read. Something shifted in that moment. Crystal thought she'd crushed my last hope. She thought she'd put me back in my place. She had no idea what she'd actually done. She'd shown me exactly who she was. And more importantly, she'd shown me that I'd never be free unless I took it by force. Crystal thought she'd extinguished my last spark of hope. What she'd actually done was light a fire that would burn down everything she'd built on my back. 2 days after Crystal destroyed my future, Carol called. Her voice shook. Patricia, drop everything. Meet me at Riverside Cafe right now. I'd known Carol for 30 years. She'd weathered divorces, deaths, and bar exams without flinching. She never panicked. Never. I grabbed my keys. The cafe sat near the edge of Columbus, a 24-hour diner where truckers and third-shift nurses nursed coffee at 3 in the morning. I found Carol in the back corner booth, hunched over a stack of papers. Her face was pale. "What's going on?" I slid into the seat across from her. Carol didn't look up. She pushed a thick folder toward me. "Patricia, I need you to stay calm while you read this." My hands trembled as I opened it. The first page was a photocopy. Bold letters across the top read, "Petition for conservatorship and guardianship." I scanned the text. Patricia Ann Morrison, age 52, exhibits signs of early-onset memory loss and confusion. Petitioner reports that the subject frequently forgets to eat, neglects personal hygiene, and poses a danger to herself and 5 minor children in her care. Petitioner requests full conservatorship to ensure subject receives appropriate care in a supervised facility. I read it twice, 3 times. The words blurred. "Carol, what is this?" She reached across the table and gripped my hand. 2 days ago, a colleague mentioned a new client, a young woman trying to get guardianship over her mother. The details sounded familiar, so I did some digging. I turned the page. There was a second document, a physician's statement, except the signature at the bottom wasn't from any doctor I'd ever seen. "This is fake," I whispered. "I know." The third page listed my assets. The house on West Side valued at $280,000. Dave's life insurance payout long spent on groceries and electric bills. My Target retirement account worth maybe $5,000. And then I saw the petitioner's name. Crystal Ann Morrison. The room tilted. "She's trying to have me declared incompetent," I said slowly, "so she can take the house." Carol nodded. "If this petition goes through, she'll control everything. Your bank accounts. Your property. She could sell the house, Patricia, and you'd have no say." I thought of Dave. He'd worked double shifts for 15 years to pay off that mortgage. He died in a warehouse accident 6 weeks after we made the final payment. That house was his legacy, the only thing I had left of him. And Crystal wanted to take it. "She's not trying to help you," Carol said quietly. "She's trying to bury you." My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. "How long do I have?" Carol's jaw clenched. "The hearing is scheduled for next Friday. Once the judge signs off, they can freeze your accounts within 72 hours. You'd need to prove you're competent, which means hiring a lawyer you can't afford. And even if you win, it'll take months." I stared at the papers, at my daughter's name typed in black ink. Crystal had stolen my credit, torn up my acceptance letter, and now she wanted to lock me away so she could sell my home. "What do I do?" I asked. Carol leaned forward. "You disappear. Tonight." "Tonight?" "Patricia, listen to me. If you're still in that house when this petition hits the court, you're done. She'll have the sheriff escort you out. You'll lose everything." I thought of the children, Logan with his quiet loyalty, Zoe who cried in the principal's office because no one cared, Jacob, Grace, Wyatt, all of them trapped in that chaos. If I leave, what happens to them? "You call CPS. You explain the situation. You make sure they're safe." Carol's voice softened. "But you can't save them if you're locked in a facility somewhere, Patricia. You have to save yourself first." I closed my eyes. I thought of Dave standing in our kitchen the night we paid off the house. He'd kissed my forehead and whispered, "We did it, Pat. This place is ours forever." I owed him more than this. I owed myself more than this. "Okay," I said. "I'll go." Carol exhaled. "I'll help you. I know a landlord in Denver. He owes me a favor. I can get you a studio apartment by Monday. You pack light. You leave no forwarding address. You start over." I nodded numb. "One more thing," Carol said. She pulled out her phone and snapped photos of every page in the folder. "I'm keeping copies. If Crystal tries anything legal, we'll have proof she committed fraud." I stood. My legs felt weak. "Thank you," I whispered. Carol stood too. She hugged me hard. "You're stronger than you think, Patricia. Don't let her win. I walked out into the cold Ohio night. For the first time since Dave died, I felt utterly alone. And then I saw him. The shadow stepped into the dim glow from the streetlight. It was Logan, and he was holding something. I turned off the engine. My grandson walked toward me from the garage, his face more serious than I'd ever seen it. He was 16 years old, but in that moment he looked like a man who'd seen too much. "Grandma?" he said quietly. "We need to talk. Right now." He led me into the garage and pulled the door shut. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn notebook. "I've been keeping track," he said, "for 2 months." I opened it. Pages of dates, times, and conversations. My hands shook as I read. September 10th. Mom told Kyle, "Once we get her declared incompetent, the house is ours." September 15th. Kyle said 300,000 split 2 ways. Not bad. September 18th. Mom on the phone with a lawyer. Yes, she forgets things all the time. I looked up at Logan. "You knew, why didn't you tell me?" "I needed proof," he said, "and I just got it. Tonight." He pulled out his phone and pressed play. Crystal's voice came through the speaker, recorded just hours ago while I was meeting Carol. "The nursing home only costs $3,000 a month. The house is worth $280,000. Do the math, Kyle." Kyle's voice. "But what if she fights it?" Crystal laughed. Cold, calculating. "She won't. She's too tired. She feels too guilty about the kids. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her." My legs gave out. I sat down hard on an old paint bucket. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I fumbled for my own phone and called Carol. She picked up on the first ring. "Patricia. Carol." My voice cracked. Logan recorded them. "They're planning to lock me away. I don't know what to do." "Listen to me carefully," Carol said. Her voice was steady, calm. "Don't panic. I'm already on my way to a rental place. I'll have a car for you in 30 minutes. It'll be parked near your house. You pack your things. You leave tonight." "Tonight?" I whispered. "Tonight? Before they wake up, before they can stop you." She paused. "Can you do this, Patricia?" I looked at Logan. His eyes were fierce and certain. "Yes," I said, "I can." "Good. I'll text you the location. Go pack. Now." She hung up. Logan reached out and squeezed my hand. "What do I take?" I asked him. My mind was blank. 52 years of life, and I didn't know what mattered anymore. "Documents," Logan said. "Birth certificate, social security card, any papers about the house, your phone charger. Close for a week." He thought for a moment. "And Grandpa's photo, the one in the silver frame." I nodded. "Dave's photo." "Yes." "What about you?" I asked. "If I leave, what will they do to you?" "I'll be fine," he said. "I'm almost an adult. Mr. Patterson already said I could stay with him if things got bad, and I have this." He held up his phone with the recording. "If Mom tries anything, I'll go straight to the police." We sat there in the cold garage for 30 minutes. Logan told me about school, about his plan to apply for community college, about the life he wanted to build far away from this house. I memorized every word, every detail of his face. My phone buzzed, a text from Carol. "Silver Toyota, Elm Street, 2 blocks west. Keys in magnetic box under rear right wheel. Go now." I stood. Logan stood with me. "I love you," I said, "and I will come back for you. I promise." He hugged me tight. "I know, Grandma. Now go." At 1 o'clock in the morning, when the house finally fell silent, I began erasing myself from my daughter's world. I stood in my bedroom and looked around. 3 years I'd lived here like a prisoner. 3 years of sacrifice, exhaustion, and invisible chains. Tonight, those chains would break. I pulled 2 black trash bags from under my bed. If anyone woke up and saw me, I'd say I was taking out the garbage. A pathetic disguise, but it was all I had. I moved quickly. Birth certificate, social security card. Marriage certificate with Dave's signature still visible in blue ink. Car title. My laptop. 2 weeks of clothes stuffed into the bottom of the bags. My phone charger. The silver-framed photo of Dave from our 20th anniversary. I left behind the photo albums, the Christmas ornaments Dave and I collected over 25 years, the quilt his mother made us. There was no time for sentiment, no space for the past. I walked down the hallway past the children's rooms. I couldn't help myself. I stopped at each door. Wyatt's room first. He was 4 years old, curled up with a stuffed bear I'd bought him last Christmas. His thumb was in his mouth. I wanted to kiss his forehead, but I couldn't risk waking him. Grace's door was next. 7 years old. Her blonde hair spread across the pillow like a halo. She looked peaceful. I hoped she'd stay that way. Jacob's room. 10 years old, lying on his stomach with one arm hanging off the bed. He'd asked me last week if I'd come to his school concert. I'd said yes. Now I'd break that promise. Zoe's room broke me. 13 years old. She was curled in a tight ball, her face turned toward the wall. I could see the dried trail of tears on her cheek. She'd been crying before she fell asleep. Again. I wanted to scoop her up. I wanted to take all 5 of them with me, but I couldn't. Not tonight. Not yet. I turned away before the tears could come. I passed Crystal and Kyle's bedroom. The door was half open. I could hear Kyle snoring loud and careless. Crystal's breathing was shallow and even. They had no idea I was about to disappear. Good. Logan was waiting in the garage. He took one of the trash bags from my hands without a word. We loaded everything into the silver Toyota. Carol had even left a full tank of gas. Logan hugged me one last time. I held him as tight as I dared. "I'll call you when I'm safe," I whispered. "I know. And Logan, if anything happens, you call Carol or Mr. Patterson. Don't try to handle it alone." He nodded against my shoulder. "I won't. I promise." I pulled back. I memorized his face. 16 years old, brave beyond measure. "Go, Grandma," he said softly. "Before they wake up." I got into the car. Logan opened the garage door manually, slow and silent. I shifted the car into neutral and let it roll backward down the driveway. The slight incline carried me into the street. Only when I was a full block away did I turn the key and start the engine. I looked in the rearview mirror. The house sat dark and still. Dave had built that house with his own hands. We'd raised Crystal there. She'd taken her first steps in that living room. I'd bandaged her scraped knees in that kitchen. Now it was a prison I'd escaped. I turned the corner. Elm Street disappeared behind me. I drove through the empty streets of Columbus, past closed storefronts and dark traffic lights. The city was asleep. The world was quiet. And for the first time in 6 years since Dave died and left me drowning in grief and responsibility, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Hope. Not happiness. Not yet. But hope. The faintest flicker of it warm and alive in my chest. I followed Carol's directions. East Columbus. A small apartment complex near the industrial district. Cheap rent. Quiet neighbors. A place to breathe. A new beginning was waiting for me in that small apartment, but so was a challenge I wasn't ready for. I drove for 40 minutes east through Columbus to a modest apartment Carol had rented just hours before. The building sat above a laundromat. The stairs creaked under my feet as I dragged the trash bags up to the 3rd floor. The apartment door was unlocked. Carol had left the key taped inside the mail slot. I stepped inside. One room, a kitchenette in the corner, a bathroom the size of a closet, a single mattress on the floor with 2 folded blankets. The walls smelled like fresh paint. It was empty. It was quiet. It was mine. I dropped the trash bags. I locked the door. I walked to the mattress and collapsed. For the first time in 3 years, I fell asleep without setting an alarm. I slept for 6 hours straight. Deep, dreamless sleep. The kind I'd forgotten existed. No crying babies, no Kyle snoring through the walls, no 5 a.m. wake-up calls, just silence. I woke up at 9 in the morning. My phone was vibrating so violently it had fallen off the mattress onto the floor. I picked it up. My stomach dropped. 87 missed calls, 154 text messages, all from Crystal. I scrolled through the messages. I watched her unravel in real time. 6 a.m. "Mom, where are you?" 6:15. Mom, answer your phone. The kids need breakfast. 6:30. Mom, pick up. I don't know what to do. Wyatt is crying. 7 a.m. You are so selfish. I have kids to take care of and you just leave. 7:30. Fine, don't help. But don't come crawling back here crying when you're all alone. 8 a.m. You owe me. I'm your daughter. How dare you abandon your own grandchildren? 8:30. I'm calling the police. You stole money from me. 8:50. You're going to pay for abandoning this family. I'll make sure of it. I sat on the mattress, staring at the screen. I could see her rage building. I could see the manipulation, the guilt trips, the threats. I opened the voicemail. Crystal's voice screamed through the speaker. You think you can just leave. You think you can just walk away from your responsibility. I'm going to make sure everyone knows what kind of person you are. I'm calling the police right now. You stole $12,000 from me. You're a thief. In the background, I could hear children crying. Wyatt's voice. Where's Grandma? My chest tightened, but I didn't call back. Instead, I saved the voicemail. I took screenshots of every text message. I backed them up to my email. Then I blocked Crystal's number. I sat in the empty apartment. The silence pressed against my ears. I felt relief. I felt terror. I felt free and trapped at the same time. My phone rang again. Unknown number. I hesitated. Then I answered. Grandma. Logan's voice was low, urgent. I'm using a friend's phone. Mom can't know I called. Logan, are you okay? I'm fine, but Grandma, listen. Mom called the police. She told them you stole $12,000. She said you have dementia and you ran away and you're a danger to yourself. My blood went cold. She filed a report, Logan continued. She's telling them you're mentally unstable. She has the conservatorship papers ready. Grandma, they're going to come looking for you. I closed my eyes. Of course she did. Of course. What do I do? I whispered. You stay calm. You keep your phone on. And when they find you, you show them the evidence. Carol's photos. My recording. The credit card statements. Everything. Will that be enough? It has to be. His voice cracked. Grandma, I have to go. She's coming back. Be ready. The line went dead. I stood up. I looked around the empty apartment. My heart was pounding. Logan's warning echoed in my head. They're coming looking for you. Crystal had really done it. She'd called the police. She'd lied. She'd weaponized the system against me. But this time I wasn't alone, and I had proof. 36 hours after I started my new life, red and blue lights painted the walls of my apartment. The knock on the door was sharp and loud. I looked through the peephole. 2 police officers stood in the hallway. Behind them, I saw Crystal. I took a breath. I opened the door. I raised my hands where they could see them. Patricia Morrison. The officer's badge read Johnson. We received a report that you stole $12,000 in jewelry. You have the right to remain silent. Crystal pushed forward from behind him. Her eyes were red and puffy. Her voice shook. Arrest her. She abandoned my children and stole my savings. She has dementia. She doesn't know what she's doing. I kept my voice steady. Officer, you're welcome to search the apartment. I have nothing to hide. Officer Johnson and his partner stepped inside. They looked around. 1 room, a mattress on the floor, 2 trash bags of clothes, a laptop on the windowsill, nearly empty. Officer Johnson frowned. Ma'am, where exactly is the $12,000? Crystal's voice rose. She must have hidden it or spent it already. Officer Johnson turned to her. Hidden it, we're in this studio with no furniture. His partner checked the bathroom and came back shaking his head. Nothing. Ma'am, Officer Johnson said to Crystal, do you have any evidence, bank statements, receipts? Crystal stammered. She took cash from my dresser and jewelry. Can you prove you own this jewelry? It was a gift from my boyfriend. Officer Johnson's expression shifted, skeptical. Then footsteps pounded up the stairs. Fast, urgent. Logan appeared in the doorway, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his face. "Officer," he gasped. "My mom is lying. I have proof." Crystal went pale. "Logan, what are you doing here?" Logan pulled out his phone. "Last night I recorded this." He pressed play. The video showed Crystal in her bedroom holding a jewelry box. She was smiling. "This'll frame her perfectly," she said. She shoved the box under her bed and giggled. Officer Johnson's jaw tightened. He looked at Crystal. "Is that your voice, ma'am?" Crystal opened her mouth. No sound came out. Logan played the audio recording. Crystal and Kyle's voices filled the hallway. The nursing home only costs $3,000 a month. The house is worth $280,000. Officer Johnson listened to the entire thing. When it finished, his expression had completely changed. Logan pulled out folded papers. "This is a copy of the conservatorship petition my mom filed. She's trying to have my grandma declared incompetent so she can take her house. It's all fake." Officer Johnson took the papers and read. Then he looked at Crystal. His voice was ice. "Ma'am, filing a false police report is a criminal offense. So is fraud." Crystal's mask shattered. She lunged at Logan, grabbing his shirt. "You little traitor! I'm your mother!" Officer Johnson stepped between them. "Ma'am, step back, now!" His partner moved closer, hand near his belt. "A warning." Officer Johnson turned to me. His voice softened. "Mrs. Morrison, you're not under arrest, but I will be filing a mandatory report with Child Protective Services based on what I've heard here." Crystal's voice turned shrill. "You can't do that. Those are my children. Ma'am, I need you to come down to the station and answer some questions." "I'm not going anywhere." Officer Johnson's tone hardened. "You can come voluntarily, or I can arrest you for filing a false report. Your choice." Crystal looked at me, her face twisted with rage. "You'll regret this. Those kids need you, and you just abandoned them." I looked at my daughter. I felt no guilt, no shame, only clarity. "They needed a safe home," I said quietly, "and you couldn't give them that." The officers escorted Crystal down the stairs. Her voice echoed in the stairwell, screaming threats. Logan and I stood in the doorway. He'd saved me. But the real battle, the one that would decide the fate of 5 innocent children, was only beginning. The police lights faded, but my story wasn't over. If you want to know what happened next, comment 1 below. Note, while the emotional truth is real, some details are adjusted for privacy. Feel free to stop here if you prefer. 6 weeks had passed. I'd hoped the humiliation of being exposed by the police would wake Crystal up. I was wrong. My phone rang on a cold October morning. Carol's voice was somber. "Patricia, the CPS investigation is finished. You need to hear this." I sat down on the edge of my mattress. "What did they find?" Carol took a breath. "Jennifer, the social worker, did a surprise inspection yesterday. What she found was..." "Patricia, it was bad. She told me everything. Black mold growing in the bathroom. No one had scrubbed it in 2 months. The refrigerator was nearly empty. Just condiments and expired milk. The electricity had been shut off again. The house was dark and cold. Jacob and Wyatt showed signs of malnutrition. Their clothes were dirty. Their teeth hadn't been brushed in weeks. Zoe had missed 3 consecutive weeks of school. No one had called her in sick. No one had checked on her. Jennifer's official report used words like uninhabitable living conditions and severe neglect, words that made my stomach twist. "There's more," Carol said quietly. "Last night, Kyle found out about the legal pressure. He grabbed $400 in cash Crystal had hidden in a cookie jar. Then he left. No note, no goodbye, just gone." I closed my eyes. Of course he did. Crystal woke up this morning to find Kyle gone and a court summons taped to her door. The emergency hearing happened 3 days later. I wasn't there, but Carol attended and took notes. She told me everything. The judge reviewed photographs of the living conditions. Jennifer testified about the malnutrition, about Zoe's unexcused absences, about the mold and the darkness and the empty refrigerator. Crystal stood in front of the judge trembling, not because she was worried about the children, Because she was losing control. The judge's voice was firm. The 5 children will be placed into foster care immediately. Logan Morrison, age 16, will be placed separately due to his age. Zoe, Jacob, Grace, and Wyatt will be kept together in a family placement. Crystal tried to argue. Your Honor, I can fix this. I just need time. I just need help. The judge looked at her. Ms. Morrison, you had 3 years of help. Your mother carried your entire household while you spent money on designer maternity clothes and allowed your children to go hungry. Crystal's face went white. The judge continued. You are sentenced to 320 hours of community service and a fine of $5,000. You are also under investigation for elder abuse conspiracy related to the fraudulent conservatorship petition. You will not regain custody of your children until you complete mandatory parenting classes, secure stable housing, and pass a home inspection. Crystal opened her mouth to speak. The judge held up a hand. Ms. Morrison, let me be very clear. You are not being punished for poverty. You are being punished for neglect and deception. The gavel came down. Carol told me all of this over the phone. I sat in my small apartment and cried. Not tears of joy, tears of grief. Grief that it had come to this. Grief that 5 children had to suffer because their mother chose selfishness over responsibility. What happens to them now? I asked. Logan is staying with Mr. Patterson temporarily. The 4 younger kids are with a foster family on the west side. They're together, they're safe, they're being fed. I thought of Wyatt. 4 years old, ripped from the only home he'd ever known. I thought of Grace, Jacob, Zoe, scared, confused, wondering why their grandmother had abandoned them. They don't understand, do they? I whispered. They think I left them. They're young, Carol said gently. But Logan will explain. When the time is right, he'll tell them the truth. I hoped she was right. 6 weeks ago, I'd escaped. I'd saved myself. But the cost was higher than I'd imagined. The children I'd loved and cared for were now scattered through the foster system. And somewhere in Columbus, Crystal was facing the consequences of her choices for the first time in her life. But there was one confrontation left. One final conversation that would close the door on my old life forever. 1 week after the judge's ruling, Crystal found me, not at my apartment. She came to my workplace. I was in the middle of a training session at my new company's Columbus office. My permanent transfer to Denver would come later. The receptionist knocked on the conference room door. Patricia, someone's here for you. Says it's an emergency. I excused myself and walked into the lobby. Crystal stood near the front desk. She looked like she'd aged 10 years. Her hair was greasy and tangled. Dark circles hung under her eyes. Her clothes were wrinkled and stained. She'd lost weight, not the healthy kind. The moment she saw me, she dropped to her knees, right there in the lobby, in front of security guards and clients and coworkers. Mom, please, I'm begging you. Tell the judge you'll help me. They're evicting me next week. I can't get the kids back without a home. I stood there looking down at my daughter on her knees. It was a pathetic sight, a necessary one. Crystal, I said quietly, stand up. Don't humiliate yourself like this. She didn't stand. She grabbed the hem of my skirt. You owe me. You're their grandmother. I pulled my skirt free, firmly. I raised them for 3 years while you did nothing. Crystal's voice turned shrill. This is because I was living in your house, isn't it? You want it back. That house belonged to us, to your father and me. Dave died while building a life for you, and you tried to lock me in a nursing home so you could sell it. Crystal went quiet. She realized I knew everything. You wrote that I was incompetent, I said. My voice was steady, calm, that I was a danger to my own family. You were going to erase me from existence while I was still breathing. Crystal whispered, I was desperate. No, Crystal. You were greedy. I looked at her, really looked at her. So no, I will not save you this time. These are the consequences you have to carry. I gestured to the security guard. He stepped forward. Crystal realized she was being escorted out. She started screaming. "You're a terrible mother." People in the lobby stared. Phones came out. I didn't care. I leaned down, just close enough for her to hear me. Maybe I was, because I taught you that love means letting people destroy you. I won't make that mistake again. The guard led her toward the door. She was still screaming, still blaming, still refusing to see her own reflection. I turned and walked back to the conference room. My hands were shaking, not from fear, not from guilt, from relief. I'd just let go of the daughter I'd lost years ago. My supervisor met me at the door. "Patricia, are you okay? Do you need to take the rest of the day off?" I shook my head. "No, I'm fine. That was just someone from my past." She nodded, understanding in her eyes. "If you need anything, let me know." I went back to my seat. The training continued. I took notes. I asked questions. I focused on my future, not my past. That night, I sat in my small apartment. I thought about Crystal on her knees. I thought about the girl she used to be, the little girl who'd clung to Dave's hand on her first day of kindergarten, the teenager who'd cried on my shoulder after her first heartbreak. That girl was gone. Maybe she'd been gone for years. Maybe I'd been mourning a ghost. I didn't cry. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. For the first time in my life, I understood that loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing yourself on the altar of their dysfunction. It doesn't mean enabling their worst behaviors. It doesn't mean setting yourself on fire to keep them warm. Sometimes love means stepping back, letting them fall, letting them face the consequences of their choices. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away. That was the last time I spoke to Crystal. 8 months later, my life bore no trace of that dark chapter. And finally, I could breathe. 8 months after I left Columbus, I stood by my office window in Denver, watching the Rocky Mountains turn pink in the sunset. I was 53 years old. I wore an employee badge that read Human Resources Coordinator. I had my own corner office, a desk with a nameplate, a salary of $65,000 a year. I had a life. My apartment was in Cherry Creek. 1 bedroom, clean, quiet, mine. No crying babies, no bills I couldn't pay, no one stealing my identity or my dignity. I came home at 6 o'clock that evening. Logan was in the kitchen stirring something on the stove. He was 17 now, taller, stronger. His face had lost the haunted look he'd carried in Columbus. "Grandma?" He turned, grinning. "I got the letter today. University of Colorado Boulder, full scholarship." I dropped my purse and wrapped my arms around him. Tears streamed down my face. Happy tears. Proud tears. This was my greatest success. It had taken 4 months of legal paperwork, but I'd been granted full legal guardianship of Logan. He lived with me now. He thrived. His GPA was 3.9. He'd joined the debate team. He had friends. He smiled again. And now, he had a future. "I'm so proud of you," I whispered. He hugged me back. "I couldn't have done it without you, Grandma." I'd also set up an educational trust fund, $50,000 divided equally between Zoe, Jacob, Grace, and Wyatt. The fund was locked. It could only be accessed when each child turned 18 and only for tuition, books, and education expenses. Crystal couldn't touch it. I'd made sure of that. I didn't know if the younger kids would ever use it. I didn't know if they'd remember me. But if they wanted to go to college someday, the money would be there. My phone buzzed. An email from Carol. An update about Crystal. I sat down on the couch and read it. Crystal was working as a night shift parking lot attendant, $12 an hour. She lived in a studio apartment alone. Kyle never came back. She'd aged visibly. Gray hair. Deep lines around her eyes. She looked 60, not 30. She still hadn't completed the mandatory parenting classes. I read the email twice. I waited for the surge of emotion, anger, satisfaction, grief. Nothing came. Just peace. Logan sat down next to me. "Is that about Mom?" "Yeah." "Do you ever regret leaving?" I looked at the photo on the shelf. Dave and me on our wedding day. Young, hopeful, in love. "I only regret not leaving sooner," I said. "I lost so many years, Logan. Years I spent trying to hold together a family that didn't want to be held. Years I spent sacrificing myself for people who didn't value the sacrifice. Logan nodded. He understood. But I found myself again. I continued. And I found you. He smiled. We found each other, Grandma. We ate dinner together that night. Just the two of us. Pasta with garlic bread. Simple, warm, peaceful. I looked around the apartment, at the clean counters, at the bills I could pay, at the boy across from me laughing at something on his phone, at the life I'd built from nothing. Family, I realized, doesn't have to be the people who share your blood. Family is the people who save you when you're drowning, the people who show up, the people who stay, and sometimes you have to save yourself first before you can save anyone else. Logan looked up from his phone. What are you thinking about? I smiled. Just how far we've come. He raised his glass of water. To new beginnings. I clinked my glass against his. To new beginnings. Outside, the Denver sky turned from pink to purple to deep blue. The city lights sparkled below. Somewhere out there, Crystal was working her night shift. Somewhere out there, 4 children were growing up without me. But here in this small apartment, I had peace. I had Logan. I had myself. And that was enough. Looking back now, people often ask me, how could a daughter do that to her own mother? But I think the better question is, why did I let it happen for so long? I sat on the balcony of my Denver apartment. Logan was inside studying for finals. The city lights twinkled below. The air was cool and clean. I thought about the woman I used to be. The woman who worked 60-hour weeks and came home to 5 crying children. The woman who gave and gave until there was nothing left. Why did I stay so long, guilt? That was the weapon Crystal wielded best. Guilt about being a single mother after Dave died. Guilt about not being enough. Guilt that made me believe I owed her everything. I was afraid. Afraid the kids would suffer if I left. Afraid Crystal would tell everyone I was a bad mother, afraid of being alone, and I believed a lie so many of us are taught. Family means sacrificing everything. A good mother, a good grandmother never says no. But staying didn't help anyone. It enabled Crystal. It taught her that manipulation worked, that she could take and take without consequences. And the children, I wasn't helping them either. I was teaching them that love looks like exhaustion. That family means one person carrying everyone else. That boundaries are selfish. I learned something in those 8 months of freedom. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't save people who don't want to be saved. And protecting yourself isn't selfish. It's survival. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. Logan was thriving now. In a home with structure, with respect, with someone who had the energy to actually parent him. If I'd stayed, he would have learned the same toxic patterns. He would have become another caretaker in a broken system. The 4 younger kids had a trust fund waiting for them. They had a chance at education, at independence. If I'd stayed in that house, we all would have drowned together. By leaving, I gave them a chance at something better. And Crystal. Maybe the best thing I ever did for her was let her face consequences. She was learning for the first time in her life what it meant to survive on her own, to work, to struggle, to grow. Maybe one day she'd understand. Maybe she'd get help. Maybe she'd change. But I couldn't wait for that day anymore. I thought about Dave. I whispered to the night sky. I kept my promise to you, Dave. I protected what you built. Not the house, not the walls and roof. I protected myself, the woman he'd loved, the woman he'd married. The woman who'd gotten lost somewhere in the grief and guilt and exhaustion. Dave wouldn't have wanted me to sacrifice myself. He would have been proud that I finally chose me. I didn't abandon my family. I abandoned a system that was destroying me. And in doing so, I actually saved the people who mattered most. Logan. The younger kids through the trust fund, and myself. If you're in a similar situation right now, trapped by guilt, manipulated by family, sacrificing your life for people who don't appreciate you, I want you to know something important. You are not responsible for fixing people who don't want to be fixed, and choosing to save yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. If you're listening to my story right now, I want you to hear this clearly. Shared blood does not excuse abuse. Real family is built on mutual respect, not manipulation. Guilt is a weapon. Don't let it control you. You can love someone from a distance while still protecting yourself. Setting boundaries doesn't make you the villain. Your life has value. Don't let anyone steal it. And it is never, ever too late to choose yourself. I remember the first morning I woke up in that Denver apartment without an alarm. I slept until 8 o'clock. The sun was streaming through the window. No one was crying. No one needed me. I sat up and cried, not from sadness, from relief. I remember Logan's high school graduation 3 months ago, watching him walk across that stage in his cap and gown, watching him smile, knowing he was safe, knowing he had a future. That was my victory. I remember sitting in my apartment last week drinking coffee in complete silence, looking out at the mountains, feeling peace, pure, simple peace. I lost my daughter, but I found myself, and I realized I was worth saving. 3 years were stolen from me, but I have decades ahead to live freely. If my story touched your heart, I want to hear from you. If you've ever felt invisible in your own life, if you're carrying guilt that isn't yours, if you're being manipulated by people who should love you, leave a comment below. Have you ever had to choose between family and yourself? What would you do in my situation? Was I right to walk away from Crystal? Should I have given her one more chance? Should I have tried harder with my grandchildren? These conversations matter. Your story matters. Subscribe for more stories about courage, boundaries, and resilience. Stories about people who chose themselves and survived. Because here's what I know now. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Your peace matters. Your future matters. Your happiness matters. And it is never too late. The best revenge isn't hurting the people who hurt you. It's living so well without them that their chaos can't touch you anymore. It's building a life so full of peace that their drama becomes background noise you don't even hear. Crystal is still in Columbus, still struggling, still angry. And I feel nothing but hope that one day she'll find her own peace. But I'm not waiting for that day. I'm living mine. Thank you for walking this difficult journey with me. I hope my story gives someone out there the courage to take that first step toward freedom. Because you deserve to live, not just survive. You deserve to breathe. You deserve to be free. Looking back at my journey through this family drama story, I see a grandmother who waited too long to save herself. Don't be like me. Don't sacrifice years of your life hoping toxic people will change. Here are the lessons I learned the hard way. First, God gives us wisdom to recognize danger even when it comes from family. Trust that wisdom. Second, the Lord doesn't ask you to set yourself on fire for others. He asks you to love with boundaries. Third, sometimes God's greatest blessing is the courage to walk away and start over. This grandma story taught me that real family respects you. If they don't, blood means nothing. In family drama stories like mine, the villain isn't always obvious. Sometimes it's the person you're trying hardest to save. I spent 3 years carrying guilt that wasn't mine. 3 years believing that good grandmothers sacrifice everything. But God didn't create me to be a doormat. He created me to have dignity, peace, and purpose. Don't wait until you're 53 to choose yourself. Don't let manipulation disguise itself as love. Don't teach your grandchildren that silence is love. These grandma stories we hear about toxic families, they're warnings. Learn from them before you live them. Every grandma story like this ends the same way someone finally chooses themselves. My biggest regret isn't leaving Crystal. It's not leaving sooner. God opened doors for me and I almost ignored them because of guilt. So if you're in a similar situation right now, pray for clarity. Ask the Lord for strength. And when He shows you the exit, take it. Your life matters. Your peace matters. You matter. I appreciate you staying with me through this entire family drama story. If this resonated with you or taught you something valuable, drop a comment below sharing your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe so you can hear more real grandma stories about resilience, boundaries, and second chances. And please share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Your support means everything and helps these important messages reach people who need them most.